Welcome to Always Auburn with your host, Tyler Crane.
All right, we're back at you with Always Auburn, coming at you Wednesday morning, and we're going to look at Texas A&M today. It's already Wednesday, and we haven't even got to address the opponent so far this week, just with everything that's been going on with referees and the tragic news we heard about Rudy Johnson and Bruce Pearl retiring earlier this week. So I don't know if it's a good thing that we haven't got to Texas A&M. Of course, we don't want to hear the horrible news that we heard yesterday about Rudy Johnson, but I'm beginning to think that if we can't get to the opponent until the middle of the week in this show, then there's probably not very good things circulating around Auburn University, and that seems to be the example this week. So, nevertheless, it's Wednesday. We're going to get into Texas A&M, but before we jump into Texas A&M and take a look at their defense, we got some breaking news out of practice today, and what that is Horatio Fields, number 5, our wide receiver, transfer from Wake Forest, reportedly has broken his foot at practice today, and it's going to require surgery for him to get back, and Horatio is probably going to be out for the rest of the season. That's just speculation. Nobody really knows yet, but if you're going to have surgery on a broken foot, then the likelihood of you returning at any point this season is not very much. So, dang, Horatio just got here. He transferred in from Wake Forest. He's already kind of stapled his name in the offensive system. They throw him the ball every game. He's kind of answering that bell. When you heard about Horatio getting on the planes earlier this year and during the summer, a lot of the receivers who are in the room with him and got to know him, including Perry and Cam, have mentioned about when they talk about Horatio that even though he just got to Auburn, they all kind of looked at him as a leader. He was a senior. He's been in college for a while, played at a different program, and knows a lot and has a lot to offer to these young players. And I think by the way they speak about him, I believe that Horatio embraced that role and really took it upon himself to kind of guide these youngsters and lead them in the right direction just within that receiver room and kind of help them with their success going forward at Auburn. So you hate to hear that about Horatio. I believe the young man has a bright future, and we all wish him well and that he can recover from that broken foot and get back on the playing field. So, but with that being said, and just the understanding that comes with football, we know that injuries will happen and somebody's got to step up. So who's that going to be? Well, we've been talking about it for 2 years now. Cam Coleman's running mate coming into Auburn. I don't know if he just slid kind of behind Cam and just didn't progress at the rate that Cam did, but I believe it's time for Perry Thompson to live up to that name. 5-star athlete out of Foley High School, really very highly recruited. Us in Alabama came down to the wire of where he was going to go. He actually did a little skit, funny, trolling tease to the Crimson Tide, acting like he was going to go there, and then went on to choose Auburn and make Auburn his university. But it's time. It's time for Perry Thompson to step up and answer the bell. And I believe with Horatio Fields going down, that opportunity is in your face, Perry Thompson. You have the chance to get on the field a lot more and really, really kind of earn that spot and live up to that role. We've seen Perry on the field here and there this year, but he hasn't really done too much. He hasn't shown us too much. He hasn't got a lot of action come his way. I do remember in the Baylor game, he actually got called for a hold on this play, but at the same time, there was a lot of effort in what he was doing. He just instead of following his technique and staying within the shoulder pads and driving the corner with his blocking technique, he got a little outside, but that's okay. The effort was there, and we love to see wide receivers putting in the effort when the ball's not being thrown their way. That really demonstrates that they are a team player and they are about this program. So that was great to see out of Perry Thompson, especially because there were some concerns that you didn't know how he was really responding to this transition of going from, Mr. Everything in high school to not really getting any type of fame and glory so far in his career at Auburn. But all that can change with this injury, Perry Thompson. It's your role to fill. Now, there are other players as well. Sam Turner might get some blow at that position. Bryce Kane, I think, plays a little more of what Eric Singleton plays. But hey, Bryce Kane might get to play a little more. There's some room for some other players to kind of insert themselves in the offense. But when you really think about it, and the first person that I thought about with Horatio when I heard the news that Horatio Fields went down is that Perry Thompson, this is your time. This is your time to shine. The opportunity has never been greater. And hey, man, it's time to show them why you and Cam, not just Cam Coleman, but why you and Cam Coleman made that class that came into Auburn a couple years ago a top 5, I can't remember the exact rank, but it was in the top 10, a top recruiting class in the nation. The reason for that is because you and Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman committed to Auburn and signed their letter of intent to attend Auburn University and play football at this college. So Cam has shown, he's proven his worth. It's time for Perry Thompson to really live up to that. And I believe he will. I believe this is a great opportunity. And, some guys when that time comes and they're called on, they live for that moment. And I hope to see that out of Perry Thompson. So that's good. That's good headed forward. At least we know that the drop off is not just something to panic about. We're not in crisis mode at the wide receiver position because Horatio Fields went down. We hate it for the young man as a person, but hey, we got a next man up mentality, and I believe we have a solid replacement coming in behind him. So that leads me also to kind of addressing and dissecting what we're going to see out of Texas A&M's defense this week and how much success we can kind of project that Auburn's offense is going to have. We faced a very good, very well coached, very disciplined, very athletic defense last week in Norman, Oklahoma. They are going to go down as probably one or two of the best defenses in the SEC, and if not, they're probably top 5 in the country too at the end of the season. There's always that possibility that they may be the best defense in the country at the end of the season. They are that good, and regardless of all the other stuff that went around and went on during that game with the officiating and all that, that defense that Brent Venables put on the field answered the bell, and they won the football game on defense. So with that being said, it's a different story this week with A&M. Now, am I saying that A&M can't shake something up and turn this thing around and turn the trend around and really show the world that was a fluke? These first 3 games were a fluke on defense and we're the real deal. Oh, I'm not saying that can't happen by any means. Mike Elko is a defensive coach, has a defensive background, and has put great defenses on the field in Division I college football throughout his career. So I'm not saying he takes pride in defense, and I'm sure he's losing sleep over the fact that they're giving up what they're giving up on the defensive side of the football at this point in the season. So to take a little look at that, Texas A&M's giving up an average of 28.7 points per game, which is terrible. That's last in the SEC, and they're 103rd in the nation in that category, which I think we all can agree that's not very good. They gave up 24 points to Texas San Antonio in the opener. Turn around the next week, gave up 22 points to Utah State, and then Notre Dame dropped 40 on them 2 weeks ago. And when they had the comeback win, last second win against the Fighting Irish. So the defensive side of the ball at Texas A&M is struggling right now, and the majority of these struggles are coming in the run game. They are averaging 100, giving up 139 rushing yards per game. So that's half of what Auburn gives up. Half of that, about 58. I want to say that's the stat that Auburn's giving up right now, and I'm willing to bet, I don't have the exact ranking in front of my face, but I'm willing to bet that's probably one of the lowest in the SECs on the Texas A&M side as well, with that rushing amount per game. So they're and they don't really fall off. They don't really fare too much better in the secondary either. They're just not as bad in the past in pass defense as they are in rush defense so far. So what that looks like is that Auburn has a chance to go on the road, and if if we can take the self-inflicted wounds out of our performance on the field Saturday and not get false starts, not get holding calls, and just play disciplined football, then we ought to be able to run the ball on Texas A&M, which is what you want to do, which is a good recipe to how to go win on the road. So, and this is a very important game coming up. Don't get it twisted. Texas A&M's number 9 in the country. Now, Oklahoma's number 7 now, but they were number 11 when we faced them. So, in essence, we're going to play just as good, if not a better opponent this week in College Station. And Hugh Freeze actually, I don't know if he was kind of trolling Oklahoma because just of some negative energy he might have towards that program, which rightfully so. But he actually mentioned earlier this week that he thinks that A&M is going to be a tougher test than Oklahoma, that he thinks even with their defensive struggles that they are a better football team than Oklahoma is. And he may be right. We have, we'll find out a little more on that this weekend. So we have a good opportunity as far as what we've seen so far out of Texas A&M on the defensive side of the ball to really make some improvements on offense and gain a lot of momentum. This is a big week for the offense because, like I said, Oklahoma was tough. Texas A&M looks a lot more realistic from a standpoint of attacking their defense and having success on offense to really get a lot of momentum and confidence built up around this Auburn offense, which is what we desperately need headed into this bye week, and then ensuingly coming home to face probably, if not one or two of the biggest games of the season so far with the Georgia Bulldogs coming to Auburn in 3 weeks. So we're at prime. It's a prime opportunity. The Oklahoma loss, put it behind us. It's not relevant. It doesn't change any any of the achievements that it doesn't take any of that away from Auburn. All the potential for Auburn to make postseason play, to end up winning the conference, all that is still in front of us. It is still something that Auburn can do. I believe this conference is going to be filled with 1 and 2 loss teams, to tell you the truth. There's too much talent that goes around right now to think that you're going to have teams that finish the regular season in the SEC unblemished with an undefeated record. I don't foresee that at all, to tell you the truth. So Auburn, everything's still in front of Auburn headed forward, and Texas A&M offers a great opportunity for us to go in there and forget about last week and really play with an attitude and a sense of urgency that we all need to get over last week and really pave the way for the rest of the season. Because after Georgia, it really starts in Missouri. I'm not taking anything away from Missouri because I'm going to save a little bit of my speculation, but a little bit of a spoiler alert. I think if we can get through College Station and we can find a way to upset the Georgia Bulldogs in Auburn in a few weeks, I think that Missouri game is a scary trap game for Auburn. But that's on down the road. We'll talk about that when we get there, in hopes that we're headed in there with on a 2-game winning streak. So yeah, the Texas A&M defense, I listed off the stats for you. Not too much to be impressed with, but you always got to be aware that these are good players that they have. They're led by a good defensive coach, and they definitely can rise to the occasion when called upon. So don't put that out of your mind that they're going to show up on defense and make it hard for Auburn. Auburn's going to have to bring their A game just like they tried to bring their A game last week. But I believe if they do, that the opportunity to find that way on offense and and get that momentum rolling and have a lot of success this weekend and see some things that we really need to see on the offensive side of the ball. Some smooth, clean offensive play where it doesn't look forced. It looks like it's in rhythm. It looks natural. I think that's all a very good opportunity to happen this weekend in College Station. And like I said, I look for Perry Thompson to be a big part of the offense this week and kind of fill those shoes of Horatio Fields. So that's enough about Texas A&M's defense. Tomorrow we're going to look at their offense. Their offense is a completely other story. I think Marcel Reed is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, most underrated to tell you the truth in the SEC and maybe in the nation. He's a baller. Lives for the moment. Lives for the clutch plays. You know, look at the way he came back against Notre Dame. So Marcel Reed is going. We're going to have a handful with him, but we're going to save that for the episode tomorrow. We're going to finish off this week this episode with our weekly segment of the ass of the week. Now, who do y'all think it goes to this week? I didn't see any too much, just belligerent, absurd type play out of any teams really this week. So other than maybe the deceptiveness of the Oklahoma Sooners coaching staff, but we're going to get off them too. So the asses of the week are not it's not a person. It is a person. It's a few people, but we don't know their names. And I'm sure we could research it and maybe find it out, but they're not going to release it publicly, and they dang sure don't get held accountable for what makes them the ass of the week for whatever reason. But that's neither here nor there. So it's not a school, it's not a university, it's not a coach. It is the SEC officiating crew, and it is the SEC just board of directors and everyone who goes into everybody who's a part of the SEC officiating. You are the asses of the week. That includes you too, Commissioner Greg Sankey. There has been so much come out about this deceptive play that Oklahoma ran, and it's comical to think that now they're saying that the refs were made aware by the Oklahoma coaching staff that they were going to run a play of that nature. Now, do I know the conversation? No, nobody knows because they don't let the refs speak. They like to protect them for whatever reason. But while everybody else has to get on the podium and address things and take fines and all that, the refs, they get away scot-free and nobody knows what happens to them because the SEC says that it'll all be handled in-house. So the refs apparently were made aware. This was been reported later after all this stuff has came out and the SEC has released their apology and all that good stuff, that the refs were made aware that by the Oklahoma coaching staff that they were going to run this type of play out some point in the game. They got it okayed by the refs. So what that tells me is that the referees do not know the rules that they have to know to be a referee in college football, which how much sense does that make? What are we doing when we hire these referees? I have no idea. That's why it's not just the referees who are the asses of the ass of the week this week. It is the entire administration that surrounds these officials. It is the SEC board of whatever it's called. It's the entire Birmingham panel of official review and all that good stuff. It's all of them. Because how do your referees not know a rule that apparently Hugh Freeze said that every coach was made aware of on multiple occasions throughout the offseason? But y'all didn't make the refs aware of this rule? I don't know. Makes no sense to me. I wish we could have some clarity in it. So, not just that play, another play that makes the ref. This is more directed directly at the refs and not around the refs. We're not even gonna get to the fumble, whatever, because that's all real. That that's all real, kind of vantage point type stuff, and who knows what the ref's eyesight is, and what the people in Birmingham were saying, all that. So we're not even going to get into that, but we can get into the little frame where they show Cam Coleman getting tackled while the ball's still in the air. And by the way, as a defensive back, you're taught what he did. You're taught to, when you're beat in a position like that, where if the man catches the ball, he's probably going to score, he's behind the defense, you're taught, do not let him catch that ball by any means. We will take a 15-yard penalty before we give up a touchdown. So intentionally wrap him up and do not allow him to catch that football, regardless if intentionally pass interfere with the wide receiver. And that's what that young man did. It was clear. Anybody who played football understands that whole philosophy. So, but the referee in the frame, what a beautiful frame they call. I'm so happy they caught that. The referee's looking the other way, stumbling, about to fall down, because from what many people are saying, he got caught watching football instead of watching what his assignment was, which was receivers. You watch the receivers and you call pass interference or holding. That is your only job. You had one job, Mr. Referee. Watch. And I think there was only one receiver. You got Eric Singleton over here who caught the screen pass, fixing to throw the ball. You don't have to watch him anymore. You got another receiver out in front of him. He's not doing anything. And you got Cam Coleman. So you got one receiver and one defensive back that you have to keep an eye on that play to make a correct call in ensuingly that there is a call to make. And somehow when they took a picture of took a little shot of this whole thing, you had your back turned to the play. You were stumbling like you were getting out of there. So how in the world did you end up like that? More than likely, you got caught not doing your job. You watched the beautiful trick play that Auburn threw out there. I guess you were awed by it or whatever, but you did not do your job, Mr. Referee. And then, not only that, you didn't even go to the other refs and say, hey guys, I was out of position. I didn't see nothing on that play. Did y'all see anything? You just looked, saw the ball on the ground and said, blew your whistle and said, incomplete pass. Don't know what happened, but I know the ball didn't get caught, so it's an incomplete pass. 4th down. That's what you did, Mr. Ref. So you, along with your officiating crew and the entire SEC administration that is in charge of hiring officials, training officials, doing official seminars, putting out rules, official review panels, the Birmingham sector, you are all the asses of the week this week. Thank you for not giving Auburn a good chance to let their performance speak for itself on the football field Saturday night, and intervening to a point that you had a large part in the loss that's in the column that we now have. So that's what I got for you today. We'll be back at you tomorrow to look at Texas A&M's offense Texas A&M's offense, and have a great rest of your day. War Eagle!